don't let us get older.
Thank you. Welcome to this meeting of full council being held here at Newton Lees Pavilion on the 14th of January 2025. I am Daniel Kelly-Wilson and I am chairing this meeting. Before we start, there are some housekeeping points to note. We are not expecting a fire drill, so if the fire alarm sounds, please leave as quickly as possible. The fire exits are located to the front and the rear of the room, and the toilets are located behind me. Please, if you turn off your mobile phone or put them to silent. We want everybody to be able to hear, so please respect whomever is not speaking by not chatting amongst yourselves. You should also be aware that the meeting is being recorded and the recording may be streamed on our social media channels. And as we have some members of, as we have some visitors present tonight, I will now ask the members of the council to introduce themselves, starting with name. Eamon, if I could start down your end, please.
I'm now Rort, councillor for Fenny, Stratford.
Samantha Brown, councillor for Lakes Estate.
Ron Hine, councillor for Queensland, Denbury North.
Terry Stevens, Manor South.
Mo Blackman, East, Fenny East.
Councillor Ismail Hussain from Manon North.
Daniel Vataman, Newton Lees.
Justin Lee, also Newton. Richard Graham, Vice Chair of the Council and Central Bletchley.
Daniel Kelly-Wilson, Chair of the Council and Councillor for Newton Lees.
Councillor Moore Imran, and I'm from Denby.
Craig Scott, Manor North and Eton Lees.
Ed Hume here today in my role as Councillor on the Lakes Estate.
Keith Ely, Chair of Finance and councillor for Manor South.
Marie Wynar, Lakes Estate. Is it Eton South? Yeah.
We also couldn't work without our staff. I'll ask the staff to introduce themselves too.
Celia Shepherd, clerk to the council.
Alison Brown, finance manager.
John Fairclough, deputy clerk.
Thank you. This is a formal meeting and it will be conducted according to our standing orders. This means that members of the public may only make representations during the public session only and may only speak for a maximum of 3 minutes. This is to allow us to complete all of our business. We have no public speaking tonight.
No representations tonight.
We would also like to welcome Simon and Sarah tonight, who are here to talk about the planning matter. Going to take that first.
We just need to do these formalities, and we'll take very long.
Before we go on to the, I have to do the apologies first. Don't I?
You do have to do the apologies, declarations, and then minutes. Yeah, you can do that at the same time as you do the, you know, you're welcome.
Okay. Okay, so if we can take the apologies for absence, please.
The only apologies I've received are from Councillor Fernandez.
Thank you. And are there any councillors' declarations of interest in matters on the agenda? No, I will take that as no one wishes to raise anything. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is the minutes of the previous meeting, which was held on the 29th of October. Unless anybody says anything now, then I will take it that they are deemed accurate record of the meeting and that you are happy for them to be signed. Agreed?
Great.
Thank you very much. Okay, before we go on to the agenda, I would like to, obviously, our meetings are held here in Newton Lees, and I know that all members of council will be very supportive to the Newton Lees community, and we unfortunately lost 2 members of our community, Joanne Pearson and Siona Grant, on Christmas Day this year, and I would just like for the council to recognise and support the Newton Lees community in the sadness that they're having at the moment. So I hope that we can minute that. Thank you. Okay, we'll go on to the agenda. The first item on the agenda will be the
Yes, the presentation, and these are our.
okay. So Simon Willis of Willis Dawson Limited and Sarah Hamilton Foyne of Pegasus, and you have 15 minutes to present to us. I think the promoted site is Newton Lees South, is that what it's called?
Yeah, it's Newton Lees South, but it adjoins it's in Stoke Hammond parish,
Yes.
but obviously adjoins. I think probably best if, given the time, we don't want to take up too much of your time as well, you've got a busy agenda, is for Sarah to give a short presentation, and then we can take any questions that might be evolving from that.
Okay, thank you. If you want to go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. If I quickly run through these slides, well, the presentation is about land at Newton Lees South, Stoke Hammond. Can everybody hear me, by the way?
Yeah.
Yes, good. Okay. Is somebody going to operate the slides, or?
Sarah, yeah, if you want, I'll operate them. Just let me know
Okay.
when to move on, and I just say next
Okay.
slide, and I.
Okay, I'll say
Do a
next
magic.
slide. Okay, we've done the introduction, so it's Simon and myself who are here this evening. Thank you. Next slide, please. Right, this is just a bit of background about the site. The site's been promoted for quite a long time ago, really, to both Aylesbury Vale Council and more recently to Buckinghamshire Council in response to the call for sites. A lot of background technical work was done some years ago, including a planning appraisal and a landscape appraisal of the site. And it concluded that the site was suitable for development, and that has been promoted to Buckinghamshire Council in their local plan review. We submitted representations to Buckinghamshire Council when they did a vision and an options consultation in June 2023. And we've also been heavily engaged in the emerging Stoke Hammond neighbourhood plan. And we made representations to the neighbourhood plan Reg 14 in March last year, March 24, and then in response to the Reg 16 consultation in December 2024. Next slide, please, John. Thank you. That is just a plan showing the site and the opportunities and constraints of the site. So not everybody will be able to read the key, but if you have the presentation afterwards, you can see the key there. The green area in the middle there is with the arrows is the site itself, fronting onto Drayton Road and Stoke Road. Next slide, please, John. Thank you. So what changes have we made? We've worked with the Stoke Hammond Parish Council and neighbourhood planning team, and we've adapted the proposals in response to comments that we've received from them prior to the preparation of the planning application. So the number of dwellings is reduced from 115 to 90 dwellings, and we increased the amount of recreation open space. The proposed scheme makes provision for significantly more recreational land than is required for the size of the development. And that's in order to address some of the deficit in terms of the recreational needs from the Newton Lees South scheme. And we are happy to allow this provision in the scheme on the basis that Stoke Hammond Parish Council will utilise the Section 106 monies it holds from Newton Lees South to help construct and maintain the additional recreational land. The new recreational area includes a potential area for a football pitch and land for a potential community facility, including appropriate parking. There's also a greater setback and an increase in the buffer between the existing development at Newton Lees South, but the woodland planting originally proposed has now been removed in order to provide better connectivity between the site. Next slide, please, John. Thank you. We had a consultation as we were preparing the planning application in the autumn last year, and the consultation took place from the 8th of November to the 21st of November, and we did a leaflet, and we had a website, and we distributed about 1,600 leaflets to neighbouring properties and businesses in the vicinity of the site. And all councillors, including yourselves and parish councillors, were notified of the consultation, and we had a press notice that was included in the local press. Thanks, John. That is just an area outlining the consultation where the leaflets were distributed. Thank you. Next one, please. Thank you. And that's a copy of the leaflet, which you've probably seen. That went through all those doors in the neighbouring community. And that's the other side of the leaflet, including the plan and the thereof slip for replies. Thank you. So the consultation comments received. We received about 20 comments during the consultation and raised a number of issues. Some were supportive as well as objecting to the new homes, as you'd expect. There were some concerns about being overlooked and how close properties would be to existing dwellings. There was support for the football pitch, suggestions for a mugger, a multi-use games area, and concerns about traffic rat running through the lanes. There were some other suggestions that access should be provided into the existing Newton Lees development, and there was concerns about speed of traffic on Stoke Road and suggestions for a 30-mile-an-hour zone. There was also some concern about traffic in general arising from the new development in the wider area, and any proposed changes, possible traffic lights or roundabouts, was suggested. The vast number of empty properties was raised, and somebody said there's no need for more development because there's so many empty properties. There's also concern about the impact on local facilities and schools, GPs, nurseries, and concerns about parking at the community facility. Thank you. The planning application was proposed. As I mentioned, there's an outline permission for up to 90 dwellings and land for a new recreation area, which you can see on the scheme, on the concept plan there to the right. It includes land for potential community facility and construction of new vehicular and pedestrian access and associated works, including infrastructure, open space, landscaping and drainage attenuation. And all matters are reserved except for access. Thank you. So the planning application was prepared. We did an ES screening opinion request to Buckinghamshire Council, and that was submitted, and the council concluded that an ES wasn't required. A range of dwellings will be provided, contributing to a mix of housing tenures, different types and sizes to help support the creation of a balanced and inclusive community. Along with the application, as it's prepared, a number of other technical documents in accordance with the council's validation checklist have been prepared. That includes ecology, landscape and visual impact assessment, transport assessment, flood risk and drainage, heritage assessment, sustainability statement, and waste and recycling statement. So the application was submitted to Buckinghamshire Council on the 19th of December via the planning portal. The council received and validated it the next day, and the application reference is there on the slide. And the consultation period is until the 30th of January. We had hoped to submit the application following the adoption of the neighbourhood plan, but a combination of slow progress by Bucks Council on the neighbourhood plans and the submission of another application by Richborough on land south of Drayton Road has really forced our hand to make an earlier submission than we perhaps would have intended. So that's why we submitted the application when we did. Thank you. And any questions? Thank you very much.
You just said something about the earlier application. I didn't catch, there was maybe a glitch. I didn't hear everything. It said something about an earlier application because of another party.
No, what I was saying was that it was the Richborough application that's been submitted. Once we realised that had been submitted, we thought we'd better submit our application because we had been working with the Stoke Hammond neighbourhood plan and the parish council, and we had hoped to follow the process of when the neighbourhood plan has been made. But Bucks Council were quite slow in dealing with the neighbourhood plan. I think Stoke Hammond submitted it for consultation in July, and it didn't actually get onto the consultation until October. And they still haven't appointed an examiner, so the process is quite slow. So that's why we pressed ahead and submitted the application.
Thank you. And the Richborough application, is that the other side of the road?
Yeah, that's the
Yes, to the south.
290 houses, but that's purely sort of speculative with that application, because it's not in any plan or anything like that. But we wanted to put ours in because we are in the plan.
Do I have any questions from members? Ed?
Yeah, I've got several.
Just make a quick point, is that possible?
Yeah.
You notice that on the agenda you've got this presentation tonight, you've not been given the planning details, the planning application details. We've got the extraordinary meeting next week and we'll be considering the planning application at that meeting next week, just to clarify the process that the town council will be going through.
So I've got a few questions. One of them is just around not neighbourhood plans, but the Aylesbury Vale plan,
as it's still called now, even though it's in Buckinghamshire Council. And then just some things around some of the community facilities and some of the access. This is partly because of lessons I've learned from Eton Leeds and such like. So first of all, I think you've said it. So is this site got an allocation in the Aylesbury Vale plan?
So it's not, no, it's not a site, because obviously the Aylesbury Vale, the local plan was adopted back in 2021, but now Bucks Council are reviewing, they're rather slowly reviewing their new local plan, but this site is allocated in the Stoke Hammond neighbourhood plan.
Okay, so in terms of the Aylesbury Vale plan, as was, I mean, we know that they've currently not got the 5-year land supply, so in that sense, it's speculative in terms of their reviewing it, in terms of the Aylesbury Vale one.
It's not purely speculative because it's in an emerging neighbourhood plan, you know. Which is proceeding with examination, so it's not.
One of the things I've just noticed, and I'm just looking at the map here, is just some of the links within the existing Newton Leeds community, just in terms of how they are. They don't. It's not clear on here, and it might be clear if I look at the actual submitted plans. It's just in terms of some of those links. Are they proper footpaths? Are they properly lighted? In terms of how that links with the existing community, particularly when you've got the facilities that the Stoke Hammond have asked for to be put in here, the links ideally for the Newton Leeds South community, who will be the primary beneficiaries of it because the S106. So that's what will those links look like?
Well, so obviously at the moment this is an outline application, so you come back off, if you're successful with the outline, you come back with the details that are reserved matter time. So that's when you actually give those details in terms of that. But yeah, I mean, as part of that, they will need to be safe and lit and routes. And you know, there'll be engagement obviously with Stoke Hammond Parish, who've now taken on the, as I understand it, or in the process of taking on the adjoining open space areas. So that will, you know, that they will be part of that discussion in terms of helping make those connections and making them safe, but there'll also be funding provided.
I guess on that point is how will there be a link from day one for the first residents who move in to be able to access the other facilities in Newton Leeds? You probably aren't going to have the recreational facilities there from day one, but the house is complete. Will they be able to access in terms of into the wider Newton Leeds community from day one?
Sorry, in terms of
so let's say if you have your first house that's occupied.
Yes.
One of my fears is in terms of some of these developments is they become locked in as a bit of an island.
Yeah, sure.
Will there be that link in with the existing from day one?
Because ultimately that's the way you walk to the facilities, isn't it? And the existing facilities, whether or not it's here or, you know, or where, so I think that will be important, but that will obviously be part of the whole Section 106 trigger points discussions at the time. Certainly that is an important part,
Yeah, I think that's a lesson that we've learned from Eton Leeds in particular, where it was a speculative development because that was why most key city councils didn't have a 5-year plan, and therefore some of the links with the rest of the community weren't necessarily there from day one. And that's caused quite a lot of challenges for the residents who then moved in.
I think there'll obviously be a trigger point in terms of probably providing the kind of open space areas. I mean, Eton Leeds is a much larger scheme. And I should imagine they had quite a number, probably a few hundred houses that were just sitting there without that connectivity into Bletchley, whereas this might be that, you know, this is going to be a much shorter development time. It's only 90 houses, and it may be, I'm not speculating, but it may be that you've got to have all that green space and everything set out by half the development or something like that. But that's all part of the discussion. So I don't think you're going to, whether or not it's there absolutely at that first house, because you've got to make it all safe and probably, but it's because of the size of the development, it's a bit of a different situation.
And then just in terms of some of the community facilities, so the potential football pitch, I know you've said it's going to be funded from S106 from Stoke Hammond. The community hall, community facility, is that coming from the S106, or is that going to be, is that just drawn in there as a reserved space, potentially for at some point for the community facilities to develop.
I think the development will obviously need to provide its regular sort of 106 contributions. And then that, yes, I think it would be more, this development is not going to build that community. It's not large enough to fund that, but the land will be provided in terms of, together with some funding to build that.
Okay. That gives me some thought for next week when we consider the comments. So thank you for that.
I think the whole principle of this is, as I think Sarah said in her presentation, there's much more recreation land and open space land and development requires. And we were okay with providing that, but obviously there needs to be a funding mechanism to bring it forward, working with the parish and Bucks Council in terms of bringing that forward, which we are.
And if I can just add to that, because we're providing more recreation space than is actually required by the number of dwellings, then it will be important that those linkages are made in terms of access to the neighbouring Newton Leys area, in terms of connectivity.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions for the development? Any other members? Keith?
Couple, Chair, if I may. Following on from Ed's point, the community hall provision. We've experienced, I think, recently in the past that other developments which are larger than this haven't been large enough to sustain the provision of a community hall. For instance, this place, I think, cost over £3 million. And it would be unlikely that Section 106 would provide that sort of cash. Is there any thoughts of, in fact, diverting that to an existing facility via the 106 provision?
That may be the case. I guess what we're doing is we're responding. The policy within the Stoke Hammond Neighbourhood Plan is looking at the potential of a facility. So we've sort of brought that to life, I suppose, and said, well, if you want one, this is how it could all be set out, and this is where it is. There needs to be further discussion in terms of, as you say, whether that's the best way to do things or whether you're best to, put it towards other facilities. But that's discussions, obviously, as part of that Section 106.
And the second question is the allotments. Is there an allotment provision within the site or within the 106 provision? Because I noticed that the site is adjacent to an existing allotment site, which could presumably be expanded with agreement.
Essentially, you've got there a fairly substantial over 2 hectare piece of land, which could accommodate various different uses, and one of those could be allotments. I think when the application's been submitted, we have discussions with the parish, and I also think, and we have discussions with Stoke Hammond Parish, we have discussions with Bucks Council. I also think that I would encourage yourselves to respond in terms of what you think would be beneficial in that area as well, and then it happens. Then locally there's a decision on what's required and what's best to be accommodated on that land.
My reason for saying is that the allotment site is land we own, and it's already not in our parish, it's in Stoke Hammond Parish. So it would seem a logical possibility to extend that allotment site if it's required under your planning arrangements.
There won't be, for that size of development, there wouldn't be a requirement to deliver allotments. As when you've got a development of 90 houses, it's largely speaking probably incidental open space and play areas and everything like that. Having said that, there is a chunk of land there which could accommodate a number. There'll be people who are saying, well, I want it all to be football provision. There'll be people saying, I'd like a much larger play area, so I'd like a multi-use games area. So there's lots of different competing things, and that's all part of the discussion, I suppose.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you.
Any other questions from members? Delia.
I just wanted to pick up on that point about football or mugger or both. Obviously, we've got formal football provision here with the pitches, but we don't have any informal football provision within Newton Leeds. So that's quite interesting. But you've settled on football, have you? Or is that, I mean, because we haven't got the planning documents in front of us tonight.
No, there's no.
Is a multi-use games area still possible?
Yeah, it will say, yeah, it says potential for football pitch, because in discussions we had with Stoke Hammond, there was an idea about, personally, my personal view, a single standalone football pitch is very difficult to manage and everything like that. So I personally, and I guess it's sort of completely our decision because we want to engage with the community on it, an informal area for sport, I think a multi-use games area would be good, but that's all, it's nothing set in stone.
Could I just make a comment for the benefit of the rest of the councillors? It might be helpful for councillors to know that tomorrow night I have a meeting with representatives of Stoke Hammond to talk about this building and how this building is being used as part of their preparations for their sort of planning about what they do in future. And if councillors are so minded, we can arrange a more formal meeting between our two councils to discuss it. You can come to the meeting. You were invited, but I think it's more about the practicality of running the building.
Okay, so if there are no further questions for the developer, I think we're going to discuss it next week in our meeting on the 21st. Unless there's anything else that you want to say?
No, I don't think so. I think the only thing I would say is obviously this is in Stoke Hammond parish and Newton Leeds South is in Stoke Hammond parish, but I very much see it as Newton Leeds effectively. So obviously our engagement will be with the parish it's involved in, but I would encourage you to be part of that process and say what the Newton Leeds residents would like.
I think being a representative of the Newton Leeds area, I don't think what they would like will be delivered with the number of houses that are going to be developed here. So yeah, but I think we can talk about it, and we've also got a bit of time. We can engage with the local community and give some feedback.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us. You are of course welcome to stick through the remainder of our meeting, but you don't have to.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Good night, Ev.
Okay. Leave you to it. Thank you. Bye.
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 Okay, next item on the agenda is to note the minutes of meetings of committees of council and to consider recommendations therein, otherwise not specified on the agenda. So firstly, 6.1, meeting of the Community and Environment Committee held on the 19th of November. I believe that there was a recommendation. Could I ask Terry as the chair to put forward the recommendation?
Let me catch up.
Right, whilst Terry's catching up, can I just say that I'm not quite sure about the wording of this recommendation, because it says it was resolved to recommend that the officer team developed a plan. I'm not sure if it was a recommendation to full council, because the minutes don't say that, or whether it was just a recommendation within the working committee to say that that's what the officer should be doing. So I'll put it on the agenda just in case, but I'm sure Terry will clarify.
Which one is that?
It's the minute reference is 41.2, and it's about the orchard land. I think it arose following a discussion about
1.12, the land beyond
Yeah.
allotments, suitability for potential use, which resolved to recommend that the officer develop. Yeah, that was within.
Was it within the work of the
Within the
committee?
working-
I think what we'll do is we'll look
Yeah.
at the draft again before the minutes go back to council.
Yeah, yeah.
Slightly loose wording there.
No, it's fine.
Thank you, Terry.
Sorry.
Next item 6.2, draft minutes of a meeting of the Employment Policy Committee held on the 26th of November. And I believe there is a recommendation, so I'll pass Ed as the chair of that.
Thank you very much. It seems a long time ago since the first November, but a lot's happened since then. It's a resolution to full council because it's an item that's not necessarily directly in the Employment Policy Committee's remit, but it's one of the things that we were discussing was the issues that we have around bookings here at Newton Lees Pavilion and the challenges that is placing on our officer team in regards to some of the later finishing item bookings and quite often what we've seen a few on some occasions of some of those later bookings then stay on for a bit longer. So the recommendation is that we have an earlier finish time of 10:30, which may well discourage some of those bookings that are likely to try and push the boundaries a bit. But also, if they do push the boundaries a bit, it's still earlier than what they're doing at the moment. So that's the reason for the recommendation, and so that's been put forward to the full council.
Thank you. My agenda. Sorry. Okay, next item on the agenda is, oh, sorry, so our members, sorry, it's been a while, sorry.
That's all right.
So,
January.
all those members in favour of adopting the recommendation? Anybody against? Anybody abstaining? Okay, so I think that is motion is carried by majority. Next item on the agenda is 6.3, draft minutes of a meeting of the Finance and Governance Committee held on the 10th of December 2024, and a pass to Keith as the chair of that committee to go through the recommendations. From
Thank you, Chair. Having just lost my tablet, but
Please very
page 13, FC 24-25, the annual financial risk management is recommended for approval to the council. So those members would be in favour, Chair.
So all those members in favour of the recommendation? Anybody against? Any abstentions? That is carried unanimously.
I must apologise that I failed to highlight the item that preceded that, which was the business continuity plan.
Which one, sorry?
50.1.
Business
continuity plan, which is essentially
on page 13 as well, yeah. The business continuity plan, sorry, Lydia, I missed that. Again, Chair, recommended to full council for approval.
Okay, so all those members in favour of adopting the business continuity plan? Anybody against? Any abstentions? That is carried unanimously. Thank you.
Page 14, FC 24-25-52V, the recommended full council interim approval of the interim internal audit.
All those members are in favour of adopting the internal audit report? Anybody against? Any abstentions? That is carried unanimously. Thank you.
And the budget and precept are separate items on the agenda.
Thank you. Okay, we'll now go to item 7 to note the existence of a casual vacancy in Manor North and Eton Lees ward, and to consider applications for co-option to vacancies in Eton South and Eton South and Eton North.
Can I speak to this?
Yes.
Members were already aware of the vacancy in Manor North and Eton Lees and Eton South. I'm doing it now. Eton South and Eton North wards, and we had noted that the councillor who was previously the incumbent at Manor North and Eton Lees had left the council. But we were waiting at the last full council meeting, we were waiting to see if the community demanded an election, which they haven't done. So the council is now free to co-opt. I've had one expression of interest already. We've put formal notices of vacancies up, and we will continue to advertise all 3 vacancies on social media and in the February newsletter. We also have one candidate who didn't attend. You may recall he didn't attend. He wasn't able to attend the meeting last time. I have talked to him. He is still keen to be considered, but I explained that we were reviewing a new co-option policy tonight, and we discussed whether he wanted to still go ahead or whether he wanted to wait, and it was agreed that he would wait for the next opportunity when the co-option policy's been reconsidered. His application is still on it.
Any members want to make a comment or question? No? Okay, we'll go on to the next item on the agenda, which is item 8, to review and comment on planning applications due to be considered by Milton Keynes City Council. 8.1, 15 The Crescent, Bletchley, MK2 2QA, double-storey side extension and change of use from 3-bedroom dwelling house to a 7-bedroom HIMO. Anybody wish to make any comments about this? No comments? Is no comment agreed? Yes, I will take that as it is. So that is no comment. 8.2, land off Drayton Road, east of junction with Barlow Way, Milton Keynes, MK2 3EW. Installation of a monopole antenna and microwave dish. I'm guessing that this is a phone mast.
Yeah, I would draw members' attention to the comments from the highways team, noting that there are several masts already in this area, and they've commented and said they're assuming that these are replacements or that there's already been an attempt to see if facilities can be shared, but it's not clear to me from planning documents whether that's the case.
My understanding is that most of the phone company's equipment is on top of Serpentine Court and that it needs to be moved. So, yes. Do any members wish to make a comment about this application? No? No comment is listed. Everyone agreed with that? Thank you. Next item on the agenda is Newton Lees development site, Stark Drive, Newton Lees. Change of use from oh, sorry.
Manor Road.
Oh, sorry. Apologies. 8.3, 95 Manor Road, Bletchley. This is the mosque. Proposed single-storey rear extension and provision of domes to the roof to the front elevation. Does anyone wish to comment on this application? Keith.
Chair, we had the same sort of application in Duncan Street. And we felt at the time that it was out of character with the adjoining buildings. On one side you have very old buildings in Mill Road, and on the other side you have traditional housing. I just feel that with that style of development would change, is out of character with what is already existing. And I would like to object to that on that principle alone. I have no problems with the rear extension to the facility at all.
Anyone else want to make any comments? And is that a proposal?
That would be a proposal, Chair.
Okay. Do you have a second?
Yes, me.
Okay. All those in favour of the proposal? Okay. And anybody against? And any abstentions?
So many abstentions, I need to see that vote again, please.
So all those in favour? All those against? 3. And then all those abstaining?
Seem to be fewer now.
I thought it was 4. So
4 abstentions.
So that is carried.
So we're objecting because it's out of character with the.
Yeah. So I think what I heard was we're not objecting to
the extension, just the domes.
Yeah. Okay. Next item on the agenda is and it's specifically because you mentioned the listed buildings to one side, was that right, Keith?
I don't think they're listed, Chair. I don't know.
There are listed buildings.
I'm sure some of those mill roads are listed.
They are very old, those all I know.
I think particularly the first few houses on Stoke Road are as well.
Could be, Chair, I don't know.
Okay, next item on the agenda, sorry, the one is 8.4, Newton Leeds development site, Sark Drive, Newton Leeds, change of use from allocated employment site to residential development for the creation of 113 residential dwellings.
I could draw attention to the fact that the previous application is still to be determined and has not been withdrawn. And this is very similar to an application that we commented on previously, and it may be that you may wish to repeat the comments that you made to that application.
I think that I should declare an interest in this. I have previously been involved in the. I live here in Newton Leeds. I don't think it's close enough to me to be a pecuniary interest. There was, I think, I had a dispensation to speak on the previous scheme that's not been agreed. Are there any other members that might want to declare an interest at this point?
God bless them.
Is that necessary, Chair?
Sorry?
Is that necessary? No. I mean, if people can't have an interest in the place that they live.
I don't think there's direct pecuniary interest.
No, but I just want people to know that
So if you declare a personal interest, our standing orders say that you should still withdraw. Now, you submitted dispensations previously, but they were for one meeting only. So I haven't got any dispensations in front of me, and they have to be submitted before the meeting. So it's a matter for you, Newton Leeds councillors, to determine what you think you want to do.
I do not believe that I've got a pecuniary interest, but I live here in Newton Leeds, so it doesn't.
That in itself is,
Okay.
I would say, is not sufficient.
So I'm going to remain. Right, so to explain this application has been put forward, and for those of you who know that we originally received an application from Taylor Wimpey for 113 houses, and then varied that application for it to become 81 dwellings with 8 traveller pitches. That still has not been determined. On the basis of what Taylor Wimpey has heard from the local community, they have submitted the original application with a few minor amendments, which is for 113 dwellings again, and it will be up to the planning authority to determine what they have to determine both applications. My personal opinion is that the 113 houses was agreed by this council previously, so I think that we should continue to support, although this is a new application, we should support the application because we previously resolved it. Does that count? Yeah. So that would be my proposal, unless anybody else wants to. So that's seconded.
I'll second it, Chair.
All those in favour of that proposal? Anybody against? Any abstentions? So that is carried unanimously. So the next item of the agenda is item 9, financial matters. So 9.1, to note a summary financial report showing income and expenditure against the budget to date. Alison, is there anything you'd like to say?
Yes, I would like to add something, Chair. Obviously, when this report was added to the agenda, there was a potential underspend. I thought of about £126,000. I've since looked at the figures again, and I think the underspend for this financial year is probably going to increase substantially more to perhaps well in excess of 160,000 underspend. Just like to make members aware of that. Yeah, there are many reasons why. Obviously, we budgeted for the loan repayments, and because of the delays with the redevelopment, the loan hasn't been taken out yet, so that was 50k. We're currently carrying well, 2 vacancies on this staffing structure. Interest receivable has been well in excess of what we anticipated, partly because obviously we haven't used our reserves yet for the redevelopment of Sycamore Hall. Also, our bookings have been substantially higher than we anticipated as well. There's very valid reasons why this underspend has occurred, but I'd just like to make you aware of it.
Thank you very much. Anybody got any questions about that? Everybody happy to note the report?
Yeah.
Agreed. Next item 9.2, to ratify a list of payments made or due to be made by council before the next meeting of the Finance and Governance Committee. Anybody got any comments or questions in relation to the list of payments? Everybody happy for the payments to be made or to ratify them? Agreed. Thank you. 9.3 to review the council's draft budget for the year 2025 and to approve a final version. That appears in your pack at page 67.
Yeah, so there's a summary document and then there's a detailed document, and I'm sure that Alison may wish to speak to this, but I would like to speak first because there are some new councillors here who haven't been involved in budget setting before, and I'd just like to reiterate the proper practices that the council So the council must consider balances carried forward. So the information that Alison's just provided is something, it's obviously an estimate, but it's something that should be taken into consideration when you're setting the budget. As well as considering that, you need to look at the spending plan, and in the spending plan, i.e. the budget, you need to include additions to reserves or use of existing reserves if necessary, to determine the budget. And finally, when you've agreed on your spending plan, you'll be setting the precept. Before we, just a reminder that I say every year, residents have no choice about whether or not they pay their council tax and the precept to us. So it's very important not to over budget. And then before you go on to discuss the budget, we have extended our resident survey, but tabled tonight is a report on what has happened with the resident survey this year, which includes a question on the precept. And you'll note from the report that we've had a very low take-up and a very low response rate to the resident survey. And I think that the next meeting of the Community and Environment Committee, there'll be an updated report, but also the opportunity to consider how we proceed with our resident surveys, because they're just, both this year and last year, we had low response rates, really very low. But you can see what people have said.
Thank you for that. Ellie, is there something you want to say?
Yeah, not too much to add really. I think Clark was very comprehensive in that note. I'd just like to add, when we looked at setting the budget, we looked to set the medium-term financial plan, and actually part of that was looking at reserves. And obviously, as committee members, you have seen this budget, had the opportunity to see this budget on several occasions. And the last kind of main amendment we did was to add to reserves next year by 20k, so we keep our minimum reserve levels at the required rates. I'd just like to take questions.
Does anyone have any questions? No, I have a question. The 160k surplus that you're suggesting. Sorry, how does that impact the capital programme at Sycamore Hall, and how much of that is allocated towards that?
We had originally allocated, I'd have to check my figures, but when we were looking at the medium-term financial plan, we were always thinking there would be a contribution from reserves, and that added to it. I can just, if you just bear with me, I can tell you exactly what the figure was. Participation. In the latest calculation we have for the project, we anticipated using about 120k from the reserve of the underspend this year towards building project.
Okay. Any other members have any questions? Ish.
It just relates to the survey, because be quite interested to find out what the other, please specify sort of section was, and
Yeah,
what the other
I think
points were.
John pulled the report, but I don't.
No, I don't think you picked up the other.
Specified, was it?
I can have a look though if you may not see.
4 or 6 people, I think, with other comments, but
We have had more surveys in today which aren't included in this.
Yes, we need to push it again.
Yeah.
Personally, we need to push it as well, because
We extended the date. I think
It's going to the 21st now. We extended it. It's gone out. We've done. I've physically gone to places where I know there's loads of people, just handed them out, you know, just to get.
is it the right time of year to do it?
Well, that's the other thing. We did it slightly earlier last year.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Summer.
Yeah, we did it.
Out.
We did it September time last year. We got about 209 responses. So not, we got more than we have now, but still, considering the amount of people we've got in our area, it's not great.
Yeah, I think what it was, I think there's been too many surveys this year. We should have left it, you know, and I'll go later, beginning this year, like, you know, because there's been at least 10 I've been involved in.
Thank you for that comment. So, are we just noting this budget?
no, there's a
we're agreeing.
recommendation. There's
Yeah.
a recommendation
So,
from.
It's the result. So there's a recommendation. I'll pass over to you, Keith.
Yeah, the recommendation, Chair, is that the budget is approved by full council.
Okay, is the budget approved? All those in favour? Anybody against? Any abstentions? That is carried unanimously. Thank you. I think the next item on the agenda is to set the precept for the year 2025-2026. That's at page 95 in your pack. Is there anybody who wants to talk to this?
The recommendation of the Finance Committee.
I've got nothing to add. It's
Okay. So Keith, if you've got a recommendation.
Yep.
Been recommended by the Finance Committee.
Yeah, it's recommended by Finance Committee. The budget is set at £207.22. It's a 2.5% rise. And just to confirm that all the requirements from committees were met within the proposed budget. Be no cuts proposed, and finances have been allocated to the big expenditure for next year, or this next financial year, which is Sycamore Hall and House, and therefore we were confident in a 2.5% precept increase, which gives a precept of £207.22, which is our recommendation.
Anyone got any comments or questions? No, I've got a question. The existing budget, so that you're recommending 2.5%, but I think your public sector pay increases, which come in this year, are 2.8 potentially. Can we afford to absorb the 0.3 costs on the basis that the majority of our costs are staff costs?
Yes, is the short answer, Chair. The major reason we increased to 2.5% was because of our minimum reserve level. With a lower figure, we couldn't have met that. And so with the 2.5%, I think it takes it about £6,000 over our minimum level. I think Alison done it, something like that.
Yeah.
And so that, well, the budget is prepared on the best estimates that we can prepare, and we've estimated that those increase in salaries can be met.
I'd just like to add that we did allow a 5% increase for inflation on salaries for next year.
Okay. Anyone got any comments or questions about the precepts before we go to the vote? So that's recommended from the Finance and Governance Committee.
Yep.
All those in favour of the precept being set at 2.5% for this year.
The precept is £207.22.
Sorry, the precept increase being set up at 2.5% for a bandy equivalent of £207.22 to balance the budget. All those in favour of that? Any abstentions? Anyone against? No, so that is carried unanimously.
We'll just read out the precept amount because that should be included in the resolution. The actual total precept.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
So the budget required is £1,326,613.
Thank you.
I'm confused. I thought it was the other one.
No, we need them both. That's the advice.
Next item on the agenda is 9.5 to approve the medium-term financial plan for the current year and the next 4 years. Is there anybody who wants to talk to this?
Chair, I'd just like to add, really, this is where we have our minimum reserve level and and generally our maximum reserve level, and this is how we find out that our future plans we're carrying enough reserves, and also we're planning ahead for our rolling capital programme as well to meet our this building development.
Thank you. I think I should also point out to members that I think some of the growth in our revenue this year has been through the increase in tax base, and
yes,
we are unlikely to have large increases in our tax base going forward because all of the land that we have to develop is pretty much developed. So, you know, I don't think there's going to be any large scale building in our area. Ed.
Not from the 113 houses here in Newton Lees, maybe, and the completion of each of these, but yeah, it will slow down massively. My question is, I've got a question, and it's just on the assumption of a 4% inflation for the 2026, 2027, 2028. What was the reason behind an assumption of 4%?
Yeah.
Well, it was 5%, wasn't it? We've allocated
5% for salaries, but inflation has come down. But how long?
Well, we don't know. Again, the whole budget is an estimate. It's not an exact science by any means. If the government can't get it right, why should we? But I mean, it's as close as we can get. But going on the point of the expansion, I looked at some figures for our Band D properties, and in the last 10 years, between 2015 and 2025, this parish has expanded by 57%. And that's numbers of properties. That's colossal. And the members, the parish and the staff have absorbed that workload. And I think we should pat ourselves on the back to some extent that we've been able to absorb that sort of rate of expansion faster than Milton Keynes.
Thank you. So is that any further questions? No, so all very happy to approve the council's medium-term financial plan, 5-year plan. All those in favour? Anybody against? Any abstentions? Thank you, that's carried unanimously. Next item is item 10, to consider a revised member co-option policy. This appears in page page 101 of your pack. I would like to take the papers as read because hopefully it has been read before. Is there anything that you want to say from the officer?
No, I hope that the report and the draft document speaks for itself.
Any comments from our members?
I think it's fairer. I think it's good. Oh, keep quiet. I'm a bit worried about it, Chair, actually, because if you, this council got taken over a few years ago by a clique, and if they took control of the co-option process, what sort of state would we be in? And you could have a very few people controlling who becomes members. In other words, if they didn't like you or didn't like the party of representation, they would not even put the most members forward.
So my understanding of policy is that that anybody could be on that. So I suggested that all of the committee chairs are ex officio members of the panel. Any councillor can be on the can also be on the panel. They'll be elected onto the panel as their request, and 3 or 4 councillors from the panel list will interview. They will write a report which will come to full council, and then full council will decide. But I think what it was maybe suggested that this would do is, one, I think that we always seem to ask the same questions when we come here, and so it would actually allow for more detailed questioning to take place, and actually we could assure ourselves that in terms of the report that it was reviewed by the officer team beforehand, and all of the information that councillors needed to make could be done. So I think that was the process. Is there anything that?
I mean, it's not lawful to co-opt council any other way than by a vote of the full council. That's the law, and that's what's in our standing orders. So this is the preliminary process, which is adopted by a number of councils, and which I'm putting forward on the basis of the feedback that I had from some councillors about the way we were doing things previously. So it's entirely a matter for you.
I think for me, there are many people that may be put off by the co-option process as it stands, and what this does, is allows a two-way conversation with a group of councillors to find out if people really want to do it, and to actually now that we broadcast all of our meetings. I think there's a number of councillors here who went through the co-option process, and actually would they kind of have appreciated a kind of more informal chat with councillors and kind of report to be produced, rather than kind of coming straight into a meeting and having to talk when they don't know who's going to be here and who's listening. And so I think that was the reasoning behind it. Anyone got any comments or questions want to come in on this?
No.
So I'm going to move that we approve the final version, that we approve this policy. Do I have a seconder? Yes. So thank you, Terry. All those in favour of adopting the policy? So we can just count. Anybody against? One against. Any abstentions? That is carried by majority. Thank you.
Should we elect onto that panel?
Yes. Although, so I've asked that all of the committee chairs are ex officio added to that panel. Are there any other members that would? So that would be, just for clarity, myself, Richard, Keith, Terry, and Ed. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Do any other members want to go onto the co-option panel? So Ron, Craig, Ish, Ray. Anybody? Is that you? A hand up, Marie?
Yeah, I see it, but it seems copied quite a lot already.
Oh,
okay.
I think, yeah, Marie, it would be great for you to go on.
Do that.
Yes. I would also, if Clelia was here, I would also ask if she would want to go onto the panel. So.
And I think my only concern about the policy is that we've said 2 to 3 councillors plus the clerk for the panel. How are we going to decide on each occasion how the panel is composed? We've got this panel we can draw from. We're not having everybody, we're having 2 to 3, that's what the policy says. So how do we decide?
I think that we ask, I think
do it on availability.
Or we could ask them in advance for any comments.
Can ask the questions. I think the policy says that anybody who's got any questions, you'll see the applications for panel meets. Any questions can be put forward to the people who are conducting the panel meeting.
When will the panel be convened? Daytime, evening?
Well, it depends on the availability of the candidate, won't it?
Daytime.
Well, not necessarily. I quite often meet candidates in the evening.
Do it on their work or?
Do it by Zoom.
Yeah, you do it by Zoom.
Okay.
So.
Are you allowed to do by Zoom?
Yeah, do this by Zoom because this is an informal working group. It's not a committee. It's got no powers. It's got absolutely no powers. It can just.
Sometimes I think meeting people face to face is really good.
Whole point is to interview them by face to face, isn't it?
Face to face.
They'll meet the clerk already face to face.
Oh, that's fine.
They'll meet the clerk already face to face.
As always, sometimes I mean, if it's better for them, they're working. Yeah. I will meet by Zoom if that's better.
Sometimes depends on the candidate and time of the meeting.
Sometimes you get a better feeling about someone, not just by over Zoom, because it's like a bit in person as far as I'm concerned. You get a better feeling of someone and you get to sort of see their mannerisms a little bit better than it being over Zoom.
They'll still be coming to council for the vote because that you can't do it any other way. And the policy says they have to be present before they can be co-opted. So they'll still be at the meeting and they'll still have the opportunity to speak to you for 2 minutes and you'll still have the opportunity to talk to them beforehand.
Okay, so do we need to agree right now how we're going to pick people?
Shall we give it a go with the next candidate? And I'll notify everybody who's on the panel.
Should it be done by area? So say, for example, they're going for a specific area. Shouldn't the priority of the panel be?
Yeah,
I think it's beneficial if there is somebody from their area, definitely.
Yeah,
I think that the committee chairs are the best members to attend for each one. So we put that power back to the chairs.
But I don't agree with it because sometimes there might be 2 councillors don't want that person in there, but they might be a valuable person.
But all that's going to happen is that there's going to be a factual record of the interview.
Chair, why don't you put it back to committee? I don't think it's gone through committee, has it, for that discussion? And we're really sitting here.
Because, if I can just say, there's a practical reason to not do that. I was unwell in December. This was due to go to finance and governance in December and I was unwell and I couldn't get the document finished in time. We've got 2 people that potentially to co-opt at the next meeting. What are we going to do about those co-options if we now wait and consider this policy again? Because the legislation says that you will co-opt as soon as possible. You will co-opt a suitably qualified candidate as soon as possible. I feel uncomfortable about building in more delay on a policy. I felt uncomfortable enough about tonight. And well, we've got a candidate who potentially might have come tonight.
Chair, it remains my view that these things should go through committee first, so that you can have all these discussions, so that these sort of problems can be resolved before it comes to council. The decision.
Noted, but I think the policy's been adopted, the votes happened, so
right.
We'll move on. But I think that what we can probably do is have the committee review the policy and make any recommendations. Okay, we'll go on to the next item of the agenda, thank you, which is to item 11, to approve a final version of the committee structure, scheme of delegations for the remainder of 2024-25 and for the year up to May 2026.
Yes, so there's two documents. There's a revised scheme of delegations which includes the auction panel, which I would have had to take out if you hadn't adopted the policy. And then there's an extended calendar for approval. I believe it's to be approved to go on the website, and they'll be back again at full council in May.
Everybody happy to adopt and approve the final version of the committee structure scheme of delegation? All those in favour? Anybody against? Any abstentions? Okay, that is adopted unanimously. Item 12, to receive correspondence from Milton Keynes City Council in response to the Town Council's resolution on exploring the feasibility of a banking hub in Bletchley. Is there anybody who wants to speak on this item?
Where would the banking hub be situated? Would it be?
Well, that was what we were asking Milton Keynes City Council to explore. If you recall, there was some demand from the community, suggestion that banking would be a good idea, and the council agreed. But at the moment, we, under the terms of the scheme, we wouldn't qualify for a banking because it's considered that we have sufficient banking. It's the national scheme, it's not. We have sufficient facilities, but we've asked Milton Keynes City Council to be mindful of this for the future if our banking facilities diminish, and to be thinking about where it could be, potentially in a redeveloped Brunel Centre perhaps, or somewhere. So this is just the response, which
so
I don't know if you want to take any further action or just note.
I think all we can do is note. Sorry.
Yeah, when I went to Dobbies, I had a NatWest banking van down there. If we can't have a hub in the town centre for any reason, would it be possible to, if when Lloyd's shut, to get a van, if they've got a van, to get one to go down to Dobbies as well? Then you can still use banking facilities down there in the van. So it's mainly the elderly that can't get their money out and put the money in. So that's when we can have the problem of people using cash if we ain't got any link machines.
I think there's a lot of things muted about a banking hub, and Brunel Centre and Sainsbury's being a multi-use site, residential, commercial and a banking hub in that area. And if more banks shut, that's what's been muted. That's why I raised the question that there would be a multi-use site, so residential, commercial and banking hub in that locality. So that's what we're to that question. If more banks shut down in our town centre.
Yeah, but that's if we can get one. I'm on about if we can't. There's a NatWest van that goes down to Dobbies. If we can get something to go down there, like the Lloyd's van or something. Well,
yeah, we can't afford that.
No.
In the town.
I know we do. But I don't know why it's down.
Our place comes to in sports centre.
There's various different. That's why the town is not regarded as qualifying at the moment for link provision.
Okay. I think we're just going to note this report at this stage, and if we need to have this conversation again or feedback further, it can be put on the agenda. Okay. Ed.
I just wonder, and I think I'm in agreement with noting it. I think it's clear that the paper is quite detailed in what comes through. And also there's a response that the City Council are suggesting that they're going to provide a link based on the link survey. I mean, I don't see a major issue in terms of what those points are, but do we want to ask them to strengthen them at all or not? I mean, their main thing is around maintaining that connection with link in terms of the communication, the promoting of peak system banking facilities that are available to the nationwide post office, and to consider the future in terms of the now centre redevelopment. Do we want to strengthen those? Ask them to strengthen them at all or not? Again, I'm just throwing that one out there rather than just noting it.
Yeah, I think we should, because the cash machine, we've got 3 at the minute, and half of them are always empty by the end of the weekend. So if we're going to lose one, we're only going to have the post office, which is only open certain hours, and then they're only going to be able to exit from nationwide, aren't they, out of hours, which is always going to be empty.
What is it you want? I think I need, what is it you want to say? What is it you want to strengthen? So page, whatever.
I think we provide a response to City Council just in terms of there are some concerns around. I'm not whether Link have done any review of cash availability in the cash machines over the weekend, because I think that's an interesting point. If they're running out, then there is an issue there.
They've got a certain capacity, haven't they?
I know, but if they're being used, then there's an issue. I mean, I'm not necessarily saying I don't. I'm just putting out there whether there is a view to be strengthened.
Also, we've got to take into consideration the parish is getting bigger. Got Eaton's, Travon Chase, and all the other developments that's going around in the area. There's going to be more footfall coming through into our town centre, and people want a little bit of service. I mean, you think about the proposed developments, Stoke Hammond, and the possibility of more people coming into our area, using our town centre from other parts. You know, we need to make sure that we've got something of some substantial banking hub in our town centre. We are quite a big parish.
Okay, so is there a proposal from?
There is another cash machine, obviously the will close, but you have to pay. It's £1.50 for withdrawal. Obviously, you don't trying to take your own money out. So if you haven't got a banking hub, you're going to end up with more of them.
Yeah, so we don't qualify for a banking hub.
No, not at the moment.
Mm.
Does anybody want to make a proposal to do anything with a firm proposal other than notice of
something that we can actually do,
Yeah.
or that we can ask Milton Keynes Council to do? 'Cause I know, you know.
I think that when they develop a Agora Centre, they should make a banking hub, small unit in there, few funds in there.
We don't qualify for a banking hub at the moment. So we cannot, we can say that we want a banking hub.
Yeah.
Independently, we've been told that then this is Milton Keynes Council, we don't meet the requirements to have one. So what is it that, well, all we say.
It's come from Link, it's not come from Milton Keynes Council, it's come from Link, which is the national organisation that assesses it all.
So my understanding from this is that there's a cash point at Nationwide, and there's also one at the garage a third of a mile away on Saxon Street, and they're saying that that's an acceptable walk away for in order to get access to cash.
So do they monitor? Do they monitor how much they're regularly using?
I don't believe
how it works?
I think perhaps what we have to do is keep on putting requests into Link periodically as the situation changes. That might be the way.
So
could
we take the questions away and email? Yes.
Yeah, cash machine's not.
So
running it.
I'm going to propose that we note this at this point. There is an email address in here where you can request information. I'm going to also ask that we email Link and ask the answers to your questions about availability of cash, not just the ATMs and where they are. Is everybody happy with that? Do I have a seconder? Yes, Keith, thank you. All those in favour of that proposal? Anybody against? Any abstentions? One abstention. Okay. Next item on the agenda is item 13, to consider providing a formal response to the local government boundary commission's consultation on ward boundaries. I believe in the Bletchley area, or the Bletchley and Fenny Stratford area, we are going to remain to be part of 2 wards. One is Bletchley Park, which would also include Fenny Stratford, and the other is Bletchley South, which would cover the rest. So does anybody have any comments or questions in relation to this?
Chair, there is a draft response. We did ask councillors for feedback, and I received none except from you. And the draft has been prepared on the basis of the feedback that I received.
Okay. Sorry.
Ishmael must have.
Page 171.
Okay, so the response is Bletchley and Fenny Stratford Town Council agrees that the proposed MKCC wards covering Bletchley and Fenny Stratford provide electoral equality as the boundaries are well expressed on the ground. Bletchley Park Ward. Bletchley and Fenny Stratford Town Council has no objection to the boundaries of the new Bletchley Park Ward, but objects strongly to the naming of this new ward as Bletchley Park. The new ward contains much of the town of Fenny Stratford, and we consider that the name of the ward should incorporate this name, or failing that, should reflect the geographical location of the ward in relation to the other Bletchley wards, rather than being called Bletchley Park. The name Bletchley Park was confusing for residents, even with the previous boundaries, since Bletchley Park is a country house / heritage attraction located in the parish of West Bletchley, and the name is not appropriate for the area now covered. Bletchley South Ward. Bletchley and Fenny Stratford Town Council supports the boundaries proposed for this ward, and is pleased that the proposal to incorporate Eton Lees into the Danesborough ward has been resisted. Eton Lees must be represented by city councillors also covering the wider Bletchley area. The Eton Lees community has links with the town council as incorporated into our Manor North and Eton Lees ward, and we would not wish to see a separate parish ward at this stage. Eton Lees also has some community links with Water Eton Church Centre, with some residents attending for religious reasons and others to take advantage of the community larder, and a range of community services in Water Eton. The Eton Lees estate is not well served by footpaths or a direct road link, but the footpath across the footbridge is the best link into Bletchley for those without a vehicle. The Eton Lees Residents Association meets at Dobby's Garden Centre on Watling Street in Fenny Stratford. We have no evidence to support a strong community link between Eton Lees and Little Brick Hill or any other part of the Danesborough ward. Anybody got any comments in relation to that? Ish?
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with the wording for the draft response. I mean, the only thing with the first response is more of an emphasis on the fact that Fenny Stratford has been taken out of the name, even though that Fenny Stratford area has its own identity. I mean, even with the work with the...
It wasn't.
Oh, well, I mean, it's Bletchley and Fenny Stratford. Sorry, I think I got confused.
It's Bletchley East before.
It's Bletchley East.
Yeah.
Right, I see.
So this is not our wards.
Ah, right, I see. Sorry.
It's the City Council wards.
Okay.
I think that we should. Oh, sorry, I'll pass it over to Ed first.
So first of all, I think the response that we've got for the warding arrangements for the City Council is fine. I'm really supportive of that. I'm glad Eton Lees has been put in the Bletchley rather than going towards Danesborough for all the reasons mentioned. It's never easy to draw a ward boundary through the middle of a big settlement, and to get that quite right, it looks fairly strong. The one thing that, and I've spent a lot of time looking at the boundary review with other hats on, but one of the things that did also come out of the review was a review of was to change the number of councillors for different wards on our town council. And that was I think it was to increase the representation in Eton Lees by one council. But it's also come to my mind when you look at the map, and some of this will come through. It's a bit of a myriad of different processes and consultations that will happen, because you've got the boundary review and then there'll be a community governance review. But I do think because of the changes to the parish numbers in terms of the rebalance of that too, they've put a recommendation. I do think we should speak to that because it is our town, and I'm supportive of that. But I would also suggest that there needs to be a redrawing of one of the boundary lines in the parish boundaries, and that's between the Manor South ward and the Newton Lees ward. And it is, if you look at the map on the agenda item, I think, or the link that's there, the Newton Lees ward does not include the the football pitches, and it does not include the development and the proposed development that Taylor Wimpey are proposing just out here. So I do think there needs to be a redrawing of that line so that the whole of the Newton Leys community is within the Newton Leys ward, because I don't think that anyone who lives over there will have much of a connection to what's going on.
Would that be, would that have to be mentioned in this, or would that be in a future community?
I think it would be worthwhile to mention it. It would be worthwhile to mention in this, because the Boundary Commission could say, we just want this to be drawn. I suspect if we went to the community governance thing, it would get redone as well. I think
what you're saying is it would be stronger if we would say.
I think it's stronger if we say it to them. And I'm happy to just give a bit of a rough idea of where that line could be. It might, currently the whole of the landfill sits within Manor South. It might be just worth changing the line, so the line of the landfill, it goes down, include the landfill as in the Newton Leys, and then it borders the Blue Lagoon Park.
So are we going to make a proposal about the name? So for the Bletchley Park Board.
Yeah, follow your recommendation.
Should we propose a name for their consideration?
I think it's really difficult to come up with a name.
I would propose that we say Central Bletchley and Fenny Stratford, because it is central when you look at it between Bletchley North and Bletchley South.
That might be more controversial if you are living on the racecourses estate in that ward. And I'm not saying that's so, but if it's to get through, if the naming is to get through, the idea of calling it Central Bletchley becomes a problem if you live in the racecourses estate, which is in the ward, and that's in the very, very, very west of Bletchley. So I'm thinking, what is likely to get through the Boundary Commission? Rather, I don't disagree with the name in terms of what I would prefer it to be, but would that get through the Boundary Commission?
Bletchley and Fenny Stratford.
What about Old Bletchley?
I think
it shows some of the history of Bletchley when you say Bletchley.
Old Bletchley and Fenny Stratford, Bletchley Park and Fenny Stratford.
There's so many different bits of Bletchley. Bletchley Farm, Bletchley.
Yes.
You can't call it Old Bletchley because it isn't.
Isn't Old Bletchley?
Old Bletchley's up Washington.
Eamon's been here, it's always been club.
You're born here.
Okay.
Fenny Stratford and Bletchley Park.
So
Leave for the Fenny Stratford.
So we could actually talk about this. I think it's really important that Fenny Stratford is recognised. So do we want to just be clearer that Fenny Stratford? I would prefer to propose something. Just say Fenny Stratford. So do we say Bletchley Park and Fenny Stratford, or?
I think that's the easiest to get through because you're not amending the original intention.
Go with Fenny Stratford and Bletchley Park. Not the other way around, because Bletchley Park's a house. It's an attraction.
Fenny Stratford
is a town. It's own
Yeah.
right. It's got to go with that first.
Yeah.
And I would recommend, Fenny Stratford.
Can we say?
And Bletchley Park.
Thank you. So that's proposed. Is that seconded? Thank you. All those in favour of that? Anybody against? Any abstentions? I believe that is that's passed unanimously. Sorry.
No, you didn't. I abstained.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. One abstention. Okay. We are now on final item on the agenda.
Sorry, two more.
Sorry. No, we're not. Item 14, to consider providing a formal response to the government's consultation on strengthening the standards and conduct framework for local authorities in England. Is there anything you want to talk about this?
I've just produced a draft which is based on, it's not my recommendation, the draft. It's just something for you to agree or disagree with so that it makes the debate easier.
So page 175 of your pack, I'll kind of read out the questions and we can say what the answers are. Do you think the government should prescribe a mandatory minimum code of conduct for local authorities in England? Yes or no?
Yes.
All those in favour of yes?
Oh, it's going to take us hours to do this. We're doing it this way. I mean, we've assumed that councillors will have read the minutes. I think they ought to have read all the papers.
Okay,
As you could do it page by page.
Okay, so page 1. Right, is everybody happy with the note, with the comments that are here, that are highlighted? Yes?
Yeah.
Or that's page 1. Page 2. Is everybody happy with all of the points that are highlighted here? Want to make any other comments? Ed?
I think it's just a point of A11, question 11, sorry, and the answer. It's about, should local authorities be required to publish annually a list of allegations of code of conduct breaches and investigation outcomes? Yes, I think we've highlighted rights. The public should have that access to all allegations and investigation outcomes. However, I don't know if that's something we've written or is that just their standard?
They've asked for comments. If they've asked for comments,
so I do think investigation outcomes should be done, but I do not think if a member has not been found in contravention of the code of conduct or the thing, that their details should be published in that way, because they are. It's about those who are.
What we're actually saying is,
no.
So what you're saying is A11.
It's no, not yes.
Only in the cases where a member is found guilty of wrongdoing.
Yeah. But I do think they should be publishing a list of the numbers of cases they've investigated and more, a summary of the
without names.
Without names.
Yeah, so you want to know there. That's a complete guess because I don't know what it's best actually in that one.
Okay, but we're going to add a comment about
list, but they do that anyway. They produce a list. Of
okay, any other comments on that page? No. Go on to page 177. Any comments about any of the items on this page? Ed?
So it's a really interesting response, and I'm going to just poke the bear a little bit, as I've done a few times tonight. It's on there. We've talked about suspension of councillors. It's one of the questions, and I guess to be really clear in terms of what our response is, and I'm of the view that potentially suspensions are of a worthwhile thing, but in the past they have been taken over when in previous iterations of different codes, councillors have taken advantage of them for political purposes. But also, should the power of suspension actually lie at the ballot box rather than at a committee? And there's a balance there between the two. I'm probably in favour of a bit more of the suspension element, but I don't think it's one that I can just quickly skim past and go, I'm absolutely sure about. Question 20 and 21. Well, yeah, main question 20.
Well, question 20 is not really about suspension, is it? It's, we said earlier on the other page.
Sorry.
Should there be suspensions or
yeah,
not?
so I've missed that one. So I've got myself a little muddled up with questions after reading it again.
That's question 18.
Question 18, yeah.
Okay. So any other comments on this document? We're now going on to page 178.
I don't know, was there any other different views around that? Because I think that's a pretty big change in terms of what's currently allowed compared to everything else in this review. Is that something that we would comment differently on?
I think if I can just speak to it, and obviously this is my own response anyway. If suspension is really the only really serious penalty that could be imposed at our level, because there's no obligation with the current system. There's no, when a member's accused of a breach, they are then investigated and a recommendation comes to town council. Town council at the moment is under no obligation to do anything. So we have had in this council's lifetime whilst I've been on, we've had recommendations that councillors should apologise, attend training and so on. and the council just point blank refused to do it, so nothing's happened whatsoever, even when a complaint's been upheld. We've not had anything so egregious that a councillor would be suspended, I don't think, not recently anyway. But that sanction should sure, you know, that is the only really, you know, there's no other alternative to be put forward. But if you think it's too far, say so and just don't do it.
I don't, but I wanted to open up the question. I think that's quite a big question in terms of what the difference between what is currently there in terms of the standards and codes of conduct to in terms of that question. That's probably the biggest difference.
The thing that I think is really worrying is that this looks a bit like a return to the standards board and the potential for, as you alluded to, a lot of politically motivated complaints. And how is that? I mean, that's why standards board was abolished, because it was being misused for political reasons in many cases. So how is that to be avoided?
Okay, are there any proposals in relation to this? Change anything? No? Does anybody want to speak on this? Are we happy to accept this document as written? Yeah. Okay. All those in favour of agreeing this and submitting this? Anybody against? Any abstentions? I believe that that is carried by majority.
No, yeah.
Okay, next item agenda, item 15, which is to approve the lease of car parking spaces at Newton Leeds Pavilion Car Park for the provision of electric vehicle charging points. There is a report on lease from our solicitors.
Yes, and it's a confidential, and the lease is a confidential document. Therefore, I suggest that you consider whether we should stop, the public should be excluded and we should stop streaming, not screaming, streaming.
Okay, so I'm going to propose that in accordance with the provisions of section 1, paragraph 2 of the Public Bodies Admission to Meetings Act 1960, that members of the public, including the press, be excluded from the meeting now by reason of the confidential nature of the business to be transacted. This is because it may be prejudicial to public interest to discuss this item in public because it concerns commercially sensitive information. Do I have a second? All those in favour of the motion? Anybody against? Any abstentions? Okay, we will now move into confidential session. I'd like to say thank you to all of the local residents who are watching us on our social media. Yes, thank you for joining us. Good evening.